Hi. First off, that's not me in that outfit. But if you look there in that circle, there's a Junior Ranger badge on that astronaut. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit, not about the community of practice so much that Earth to Sky is, but how this partnership got to be solidified and how some of the best practices for building a lasting partnership and using Earth to Sky as a model for that. So first off, what is Earth to Sky? Well, Earth to Sky is the only interagency partnership that's addressing informal education and climate change, as far as we know. We conduct professional development for informal educators in the Park Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, and others. And we have a community of practice. There's about 500 people on our listserv. We have extensive reach. We followed 86 participants from 2 courses, and they in turn reached over 4 million visitors in national parks and wildlife refuges over the course of 2 years, with content derived from the courses. And in total, we've educated about 700 educators through face-to-face courses, distance learning efforts, presentations that vary from 1 hour to 2 days at professional conferences and so forth. And we've had about 75 NASA scientists present in over 100 sessions during the course of the partnership. And I should say the partnership began in 2004 with a NASA grant, and it started out as basically a showcase of NASA stuff. And it's evolved into a much more intentional project and therefore deeper and more meaningful, I think. So our premise is that if we connect the big picture global science that NASA, and now we have NOAA joining us, that they bring with place-based experiences, that connection will resonate with visitors in those place-based events. The visitors more likely to have meaningful learning experience, and the climate science will get through to them in a better way, and they'll hang on to it longer. We have shared goals, of course. And the main one is to establish, nurture, and maintain a community of practice in science education. The objective is to enable those educators to access and to use the science in their work, and to expose the scientists in turn to informal education methodology that's proven and works well. And also to encourage this cross-agency dialogue about communicating climate change science to the public. Our results are pretty fun, really. What our alumni have created range from things like the Global Connections Web Ranger Climate Change activity, which has 3 activities in one and reached thousands of kids, to exhibit panels in parks and refuges across the country, all kinds of brochures, websites, podcasts, personal programs. It sort of runs the full gamut of informal education. And we got there by developing a pretty strong partnership. So here are some of the characteristics of successful partnerships that Earth to Sky has. And I'm going to step through them individually so you don't have to try to absorb this whole slide all at once, but there they are. So beginning with a genuine team approach, what I really mean by that is that at the very beginning of our relationship, before we even wrote the proposal, which was a NASA-funded effort back in 2004, we engaged with the people we wanted to have be our audience, which was National Park Rangers. And we had them help us to devise what it was that we were going to create. So they were true partners right from the very beginning. And though they never can bring money to the partnership, they bring in-kind contribution that's enormous. Expertise, places to conduct training, places to conduct the actual informal education, and so forth. So right at the very beginning, we were fully engaged. And that really is our most significant best practice, is that the project design, the development, the evaluation, the execution, all accomplished in true partnership with the leaders from our intended audience. And initially it was Park Service, and then we expanded to Fish and Wildlife Service in later years. They were fully involved from the very beginning. all the way through sustenance of the project and to strategic planning for sustainability, which we continue to do. So we begin with a desire and ability to listen to each other's needs, or at least that's what we thought. We all thought we had that, but then we engaged a facilitator who helped us to understand that we weren't as far along that path as we thought we might be. And very early on, they taught us a methodology called the 7 Norms of Collaboration, which helped our group to really solidify our collaborative approach. We, in turn, have been teaching that particular approach to our alumni. Actually, we teach it in our courses, and they think it's a really fabulous thing, and so we continue to do that. So though we might think that we are ready to do that, it's helpful to have an external facilitator to encourage that and to build that capacity within the partnership. It's also important that the partners bring a desire and ability to meet challenges, and that they come with a willingness to change their own way of doing things, because we all know that we will end up with challenges. In our case, we have different corporate cultures. The pace of NASA is significantly different from the pace of the Park Service and Fish and Wildlife Service. I mean, NASA is really fast, fast adopter. Park Service and Fish and Wildlife Service, not quite as quick. We have different languages. The one that I love is this resource versus resource. So in NASA speak, resource means money. In the Park Service and Fish and Wildlife Service, a resource means plants, animals, geology, cultural resources. You know. There's different motives for partnering. There's definitions of success that can differ. There's strong personality types sometimes, and our geographic distribution for our partnerships span every time frame in the nation. So that can make things a little fun when you're trying to do a telecon. And then there's just plain significant communication barriers. Right now, for the Fish and Wildlife Service, they are not allowed to access Facebook during work time. So it matters in terms of just basic communications. It is, of course, important that the agencies involved or the groups involved have strong shared goals. And we oftentimes have been asked, how in the world did you get NASA and the Park Service and Fish and Wildlife Service together? And it's really because the agencies have broadly similar goals. When we began, NASA's mission, which just shifted a little bit, but still has this at its heart, I think, to understand and protect our home planet, to inspire the next generation of explorers, and to engage the public. And in the Park Service, preserve unimpaired the cultural and natural resources, and to inspire the future generations, and to increase stewardship of the planet. So very similar goals to begin with. And we also find that we have complementary needs. Place-based educators need up-to-date, relevant science that's accurate, well-vetted, and all. They need effective visuals. They need to learn better tools themselves about communication. And the science agencies have a need for a broader audience, a way to reach them in a deeper way. They need also to communicate that science effectively. And in this little picture, we have Will Elder at the podium, who's one of our alumni, introducing Gavin Schmidt at Goddard. So we have the interpreter who needs the science, and the scientist who actually does need the interpreter, although they're not always sure of that to begin with. We have complementary resources, and in the one that I really like to point out here is that NASA and NOAA bring this global and regional perspective, that strong science, and the Park Service and Fish and Wildlife bring the tangible connections to that. They bring a place and a way to reach people in their heart about that, and these compelling stories which are different but can be tied effectively. So one of the really important things that happened early on in Earth to Sky was to develop the project leadership from within the participating organization. So Earth to Sky 1 was in 2004, and in 2, we just brought back the people who were acting as coaches or Park Service facilitators within that first course, and we asked them to develop exemplary products that we could then use in training in future years or future courses, and they did that. And then those alumni became trainers. So this is Ron Harvey, who was at the time at Rock Creek National Park, teaching the next group of informal educators about a course that, or rather a game that he invented called Carbon Toss. And he's comparing the atmospheres of Mars, Venus, and Earth, and he's bringing that connection down to Rock Creek using a Landsat image on the floor. It's pretty, pretty fun. So those people then, in turn, because of their total buy-in and because they've been elevated in that partnership, they become champions within the partnership. So we started out with our own selves as champions, me, my partner Ruth Paglierani, Isabel Hawkins, who was her boss at the time, and then now we have NOAA, Bart Merrick in the East Coast is a strong champion, but Sandy Spakoff at Fish and Wildlife Service at the National Conservation Training Center is our champion there, and then we have our sort of a full array of coaches that are helping to carry the torch forward. And we are also finding that some of our scientists who have participated in the training are becoming champions as well. This is Peter Griffith, who has given a number of presentations about the carbon cycle in our courses. And he's leading or helping to lead a new campaign that NASA has in Alaska and Canada called ABOVE, Arctic Boreal Vulnerability Experiment. And he is such a strong champion of Earth to Sky that he's inviting us to help with the communication and outreach of that campaign over the course of next several years. And so turning it on its head and having people who were presenters actually become champions has been a really wonderful aspect. And that was not actually fully anticipated by us. So in sum, it's important, critical, I would say, to begin by working together and to have some fun with doing that. We actually partied a little bit when we were first together. And part of our working together involves the facilitator and the evaluator to get to understand the full community that we have. Begin with the end in mind. So focus on the needs of that end user. I don't want to get into the full sort of structure of our courses. They, in somewhat parallel what Billy was talking about with his program. But focus on the needs of the end user and bring them into the fold for helping with developing the partnership itself. External facilitation can be really helpful. I would say that it got us up on a very solid footing and was probably instrumental in making it a successful partnership. And then professional evaluation, of course, is absolutely essential, and I would strongly recommend the formative evaluation as being probably the most important evaluation. Summative is useful for proving that you did a good job, but formative will get you there. And we had some really excellent formative evaluation throughout, but particularly in our very beginning efforts, it saved us from falling flat on our face. So I would really strongly recommend that. So thank you for joining us. These are all the people who are sort of in our leadership community right now. And I just want to mention that with this connection to ABOVE in Alaska, we're embarking on a new kind of course, a regionally focused blended learning course, and it will launch in March and April of this coming year in Denali. So just want to get the word out there about that. So thank you.
Thank you.